This is Biology Form 4, new chapter, Chapter 12, Coordination and Response in Humans. So, 12.1, Coordination and Response. So, di sini, kamu kena tahu what is the meaning of coordination, what is the meaning of response. So, there are some terms that you should understand in this chapter. Okay, so di sini, kamu bayangkan, sebelum itu teacher bagi kamu satu bayangan. Bayangkan kamu sedang berjalan-jalan, tiba-tiba kamu nampak di depan kamu itu ada satu anjing yang besar dan garang. So, apa yang kamu akan lakukan? Okay, of course, mata kamu akan memandang anjing tersebut dan kamu akan respon. Sama ada kamu lawan, okay, ataupun kamu lari. Okay, ada respon. So, kan? So, begitulah. Kita sebagai organism, we have the ability to detect the changes in our environment and then we will respond to the changes. So this ability is called sensitivity. Okay, sensitivity. And the change that will stimulate our response is known as stimulus. Ataupun, yalah, stimulus is yang merangsang. Okay, the stimulus is divided into two types. External stimulus and internal stimulus. So, stimulus from external environment itu adalah external stimulus lah. Contohnya light, sound, smell, taste, surrounding temperature, pressure and touch. Okay. Manakala internal environment termasuklah blood osmotic pressure, changes in body temperature, changes in blood sugar level. Itu adalah contoh-contoh internal environment stimulus. Okay. So, mammals can detect stimulus via the spatial sensory cells known as receptor. So, we detect the stimulus by receptor. Okay, when a receptor detects a stimulus such as sound, the stimulus is converted into nerve impulses. Okay, nerve impulses. And then the nerve impulses are sent to the brain through nerve cells or neurons. Okay, nerve cells itu adalah neuron. The brain is the integration center that translates nerve impulses and coordinates an appropriate response. So, response di sini refer to the way organism react after detecting a stimulus. And the part of our body that respond is called effector. Contohnya, muscles, gland, okay? Bila kita mau berlari, okay, kita punya muscle perlu contract, so muscle itu adalah effector yang akan generate respond. Alright? So, ini adalah main component and pathways involving in detecting and responding to changes in external environment. So, contoh di sini, okay, kita mau angkat call, angkat telefon. Stimulus from the external environment. Apa stimulus dari external environment dia? The sound of the phone ringing. Kring, kring, okay? Kring, kring. So, sound itu detected by our sensory receptor. Okay, in the sensory organs, and then it will be transformed into nerve impulses. The nerve impulses will be sent through the sensory neuron. Okay, neuron yang akan send itu nerve impulse, okay, to the brain. Okay, to the brain integration center, kepada otak kita lah. Okay, sensory neuron. So in the brain integration center, the nerve impulses are interpreted and a response is triggered. So now the impulse are sent through the motor neuron to the effector. Okay, motor neuron bukan lagi sensory neuron, but untuk generate response itu motor neuron sudah. Okay, from the brain to the effector adalah motor neuron. So, kemudian effector, for example, hand muscle will produce a response. So, kita akan angkat telefon itulah, answering the telephone. So, ini adalah contoh lah, pathway involving response. Okay. Receptor and effectors work together to bring suitable changes depend on the stimulus detected. So, coordination is a stimuli detection process by receptors that ends in appropriate response by effector. So, coordination ini adalah daripada stimulus, detections of the stimulus, sampailah response by the effector. Coordination ensure that the overall activities and systems of an organism function and are synchronized perfectly as a complete unit. The role of coordination and response is conducted by two separate systems, yaitu nervous system and endocrine system. So both of these systems will work together to coordinate and control our responses. Right? So di sini ini adalah the main component and pathway involved in detecting and responding to changes in the internal environment. So ini contoh untuk internal environment. So mula-mula di sini stimulus from the internal environment. Contohnya blood pressure increases during running. Okay, so this will be detected by receptors, yaitu baroreceptor in the aortic arch and the carotid artery. Okay, kemudian nerve impulses are sent through the sensory neuron to the integration center lah, kepada otak kita. The integration center, cardiovascular control center in the medulla oblongata of our brain. Okay, here the cardiovascular control center will send the nerve impulses through the motor neuron to the effector. So now the effector will react, weaken contraction of cardiac muscle and the expansions of blood vessel diameter. So this will reduce the blood pressure to normal range. So daripada sini, rangsangan dia, stimulus dia adalah the blood pressure increase during running. So apa yang terjadi, result dia di sini adalah to lower or to reduce the blood pressure to normal range. Okay, ini untuk internal environment. So types of receptor. Sensory receptors found at the end of the nerve fibers detect information in the external and internal environment. The locations of receptors will depend on the type of stimulus detected. Each type of receptor is usually sensitive to a specific stimulus. For example, the sensory receptor that detect external stimuli are found in special sensory organs such as eyes, nose, tongue, and skin. The sensory receptors that detect internal stimuli are present in specific internal organs such as the pancreatic cells that detect blood sugar level. So ini ada beberapa jenis sensory receptor and stimulus yang terlibat. So for example, photoreceptor, stimulus dia light. Thermoreceptor, stimulus dia change in temperature. Chemoreceptor, chemical substance, stimulus dia. Baroreceptor untuk pressure changes, okay. Mechanoreceptor, touch and pressure, and nociceptor is pain. Okay, the stimulus is pain. Okay, so di sini photoreceptor, okay, photoreceptor light stimulus. Okay, ini contoh detections of external stimulus by the photoreceptor. So light stimulus, rangsangan dia cahaya. So yang detect stimulus ini adalah receptor photoreceptor. Photoreceptor dia akan send into nerve impulses into the integration center, the brain. Okay, so this is the sensory neuron by the sensory neuron, yaitu optic nerve. Okay, ini contoh dia. So di sini animal migrate when they sense changes in the climate. Begitu. So kalau tidak ada stimulus, dia tidak akan migrate, betul kan? So bila ada dia punya stimulus dia adalah changes in climate. So ada response dia. Response dia adalah, for example here, ni birds ini migrate. Okay. So what is the necessity of response? Okay. So why we have to respond to the stimulus? Okay. The ability of organism to detect changes in the external environment and its response to the stimuli is very important for our survival, for the survival of the organism. Okay, for some animals, a sudden change in climate condition motivates the animal to look for new shelters. The ability of organism to detect changes in the internal environment is also crucial so that the information can be transmitted to the integration center. Okay, the integration center will then transmit this information to the effectors to respond to the changes. Okay, contohnya, when our body temperature increases above the normal range, this information will be transmitted to the integration center by receptor. Okay, the integration center will send nerve impulses to the effector to decrease the temperature back to its normal range. So, in conclusion, human and animals need to respond to adapt to the changes in the environment. So sangat penting itu respond. Okay, sangat penting itu respond, detections of the stimulus sampailah response. Itu sangat penting untuk memastikan kita selamat. Okay, sama ada daripada external stimulus ataupun internal stimulus for our survival. Okay, that's all for today. We will continue in next lesson in the next video. Thank you.